It is difficult to fathom just how deeply the galactic consensus had been wrong about humanity. The galaxy had watched the rise of countless civilizations over millennia, from the towering, ancient Tizrath to the swift, deadly Zihari. Each of these species had left their mark upon the stars, their legacies carved into the very fabric of galactic history. But when humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, it was seen as little more than a fleeting curiosity, a young race of barely evolved beings, weak in comparison to the long-established powers of the galaxy. Earth was a planet of dense forests, vast oceans, and primitive creatures that might have been impressive by local standards, but not by any measure that mattered in the galactic sphere. Humans were deemed fragile. Their technology was primitive, their military weak, and their knowledge of spacefaring technology was laughable compared to the ancient and advanced civilizations that had mastered the stars. Humanity was a race that would fade into obscurity. The galaxy's leaders predicted, no matter how much they yearned for a place at the table of galactic powers. The galaxy's leading civilizations, including species that had risen from worlds far older and more established than Earth, had watched with quiet amusement as the humans ventured into space. Their expeditions were small, their ships sluggish, and their efforts half-hearted at best. It was almost as though the galaxy had granted them the courtesy of letting them try, not because anyone truly believed that humanity would succeed, but because of the fascination with watching a child play in a universe full of giants. There was no need to worry about humanity. They had no real power to speak of, no advanced weaponry or technologies to threaten the greater species of the galaxy. The established galactic order held firm, and in its vast and unyielding expanse, humanity was an insignificant speck. The stars, it seemed, would continue to belong to the great powers of the galaxy, and humanity would remain confined to their small corner of the universe, relegated to the role of observer rather than participant. But none of these species had foreseen what would happen when their complacency and overconfidence led them to underestimate a force they couldn't begin to comprehend: humanity's unyielding will to survive. While the rest of the galaxy's great species relied on their strength, technology, and millennia of experience, humanity had something far more potent in its arsenal: a raw, unbreakable drive to adapt, to learn, and to overcome. It was a simple but powerful quality that no one had expected. It was this tenacity that would ultimately lead to the survival of the human race and to a victory that stunned the galaxy. When the Exrathar arrived at the fringes of the galaxy, the reaction from the galactic powers was one of immediate alarm. These creatures were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships were massive and formidable, designed with precision and ingenuity that made them an immediate threat. The Exrathar were ruthless, their civilization built on constant conquest and warfare. They had mastered the art of war to an extent that no other species could hope to match. Their biological capabilities, too, were terrifying. They were massive, their strength and endurance pushing the boundaries of what other species thought possible. Their advanced weaponry was capable of disintegrating entire ships with a single pulse, and their war tactics were brutal and precise, leaving no room for mercy or negotiation. The Exrathar's motivations were simple and horrifying. They wanted to conquer. They wanted to take control of everything, and they wanted to wipe out anyone who stood in their way. Their appearance at the galactic border sent shockwaves through the established powers. The galaxy's civilizations were unified in their fear of this new threat. For a brief period, there was a sense of calm. Everyone believed that they could fend off the invaders, but those hopes were dashed quickly. The Exrathar struck first, and they struck hard. The first attack on a distant colony was devastating. Within hours, an entire population of beings was wiped out, and their planet was reduced to rubble. It was a horrifying glimpse into what the galaxy's future might hold if the Exrathar were allowed to spread further. The galaxy's powers scrambled to prepare their fleets and defenses, but it was already too late. The Exrathar had arrived in full force, and they showed no mercy. One by one, they decimated the outer colonies, crushing the resistance of established galactic forces. The mighty fleets of the galaxy, equipped with the most advanced technologies available, were helpless against the Exrathar's superior tactics and devastating weapons. And yet, it wasn't just the strength of the Exrathar that was terrifying, it was their strategic brilliance. They were efficient, calculating, and entirely focused on their goal, total annihilation. In the wake of the Exrathar's brutal assault, the galaxy's leading civilizations convened. A meeting was held to discuss the only course of action that seemed plausible, a unified stand against the invaders. But there was one critical issue no one had accounted for. The Exrathar's weaponry was so advanced, so destructive, that the galaxy's greatest minds couldn't comprehend how to effectively combat it. They had no knowledge of the Exrathar's technology, their energy systems, or their tactical strategies. The great fleets of the galaxy tried to counter the Exrathar's superiority, but time and time again, they failed. Every battle resulted in a devastating loss for the galaxy's forces. The enemy's overwhelming might rendered everything they had tried insignificant. The galaxy's confidence, once so sure and firm, was shattered in the face of this unstoppable threat. They were being annihilated, reduced to fragments, and the galaxy's leaders were forced to admit the unspeakable truth. They had no idea how to stop the Exrathar. They had no chance of survival. At the center of this bleak realization was Earth, a planet that had been deemed irrelevant by the galaxy's great powers. Its people had never been considered a threat, weak and primitive. They were little more than an afterthought in the grand scheme of galactic affairs. When the Exrathar turned their sights on Earth, the calculations for humanity's survival were stark. Earth had no fleet capable of standing against the invaders. Their defenses were laughable compared to the strength of the Exrathar's weaponry. There was no way humanity could fend off the attack. The survival rate for humans was calculated at 0%. The human governments, in a state of despair, made preparations for the inevitable fall. But in the darkest hour, when all seemed lost, something extraordinary happened. The humans, those fragile, seemingly helpless creatures, refused to give up. They turned to what had always been their greatest strength: innovation. In the face of annihilation, humanity did what it always did best: it adapted. They did not have the advanced technology of the other galactic species, nor the sheer physical power of the Exrathar, but they had something more important: ingenuity. With their backs against the wall, the humans embarked on an all-out effort to develop countermeasures. Engineers, scientists, and military experts worked around the clock to find any advantage they could, no matter how small. They analyzed the Exrathar's weaponry, scavenged parts from the wreckage of their own fallen fleets, and began piecing together solutions. In a matter of months, the human race made astonishing advancements. They reverse-engineered Exrathar technology, making sense of energy systems that had once seemed incomprehensible. They developed new weapons, utilizing a combination of their own technology and the scavenged remains of Exrathar technology. They turned their attention to the tactics employed by the invaders, using their own brand of unorthodox strategy to devise ways to outmaneuver and outsmart the Exrathar forces. But it wasn't just their technology that changed the tide of the war. It was the humans' indomitable spirit. As the war waged on, the galaxy's most powerful forces turned to the human race for guidance. The humans, once thought to be helpless, now found themselves leading the resistance, coordinating the galaxy's forces and turning the tide of the war in ways no one had ever thought possible. The humans fought with a relentless determination that even the Exrathar could not overcome. They utilized every advantage terrain, speed, unpredictability, and intelligence to defeat the enemy. The tide of war shifted, and for the first time, the Exrathar found themselves on the defensive. With each passing battle, the humans proved their worth, not through sheer power, but through their ability to adapt, to learn, and to innovate in the face of insurmountable odds. The galaxy, once filled with doubt, now watched in awe as humanity, with its 0% chance of survival, defied the expectations of the universe and emerged victorious. The Exrathar, for all their might and their brutal superiority, were defeated. The impossible had happened, and humanity had won. Against all odds, the species that had once been deemed weak, fragile, and inconsequential had risen to the challenge and saved the galaxy from annihilation. The galaxy had learned an invaluable lesson that day. Never underestimate the power of the human spirit. It was not strength or technology that made humanity powerful. It was the ability to adapt, to overcome, and to face adversity with unflinching determination. No matter how dire the circumstances, humanity would find a way to survive. And that, above all else, was what made them truly unstoppable.